Now, we've got about 30 to 35 minutes, and I think we've got quite a lot to jump into. So should we start with maybe brief introductions from each of you? Do you want to start from that end, Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie Harries. I'm a Director for International Policy at Coinbase. We're one of the world's largest crypto exchanges. We've got millions of customers over 100 different countries. We're publicly listed in the US, and we are very much regulation forward.
Hello. Hi, I'm James Burnie at law firm Gunnercooke. We have 12 people in the team doing just crypto. And we're accepting crypto as one of the major law firms in the UK accepting payment to crypto. Been involved since the first ICO in the UK and particularly focused on the regulatory side of the whole Web3.
Hello, my name is Roshi Sharma. I work at LawBEAM. We are a crypto-focused legal boutique, and we help our clients navigate the changing legal and regulatory environment.
And hi everyone, I'm Sophie Bowler. I'm Chief Compliance Officer at Zodia Custody. So Zodia Custody is a UK registered firm with the FCA, with shareholders including Standard Chartered, and we're a core crypto custodian for the institutional sector.
Lovely, thanks you all very much. So we're here in London, and we've got an increasingly strong turnout here for this session to look at UK regulation in particular. And I think a lot of people have been talking about some incoming changes from the UK's FCA in respect of financial promotions. Now, Roshi and James, two lawyers, it'd be good if maybe you could give us a brief overview of what this financial promotions regime means, what it is, what the changes are, and how that's going to impact some crypto firms.
So from the 8th of October, the existing financial promotions regime is being expanded to include crypto assets. And what that means is that from that date, in order to market to the UK consumer, you either need to be 1, authorised by the FCA, 2, registered with the FCA as a crypto asset service provider under the money laundering regulations, 3, you have to have your communications approved by an authorised person, or 4, if one of the exemptions apply. If you fall within that regime, then a whole new world of pain and FCA rules will apply to your communications. Communications need to be fair, clear, and not misleading. You need to give your customers a 24-hour cooling off period. There's risk summaries, risk statements. You need to assess your client's appropriateness to purchase as crypto assets. There's a whole new regime of FCA rules that will apply. If you are outside the regime, then you cannot market to a UK customer. And if you breach the rules, it's a criminal offence, punishable by up to 2 years in prison or an unlimited fine. So it is really a big deal. And if this is news to anyone in the audience, please come and speak to us afterwards. I was expecting to see some people run out of the room after I finished on that, but no, it's a really big deal, and it's quite serious.
It's founded by my favourite charity, Lawyers Need, who need to have a bit more legal work. This thing here is, there's a lot of flexibility around some of this regime. It's an interesting infrastructure play that we are seeing. So first of all, it does not apply to NFTs. It does not apply to tokens which are transferable. Our guess is there will be a bit of a delay because these things tend to come in that way. But what we're seeing at the moment is a move to build the infrastructure to sell in the UK. And we're seeing the first licenses come out by people able to approve those through. So this is not the UK switching off. This is an infrastructure build. And this is exactly what happened with hedge funds about 20 years ago. So this is a repeat gig, and there are going to be ways forward. The short-term problem we have in the UK at the moment is a lack of infrastructure. We've got one exchange able to do it. We've got one which used to be a fund manager able to do it. We've got 3 or 4 people we know of at the moment who are on the game plan to get it. So in about 6 months, this will be fixed. So, yep, hellfire and damnation, because we love talking about that. But bear in mind, this is an infrastructure play. There will be ways forward. You can structure it. This is not the UK going offline. This is simply need to come in a smooth way. And in my view, it's actually going to be good for the industry long term because you're going to get gatekeepers to take out some of the worst rug pulls. So this is part of maturing, and it's like going to the dentist. No one loves going to the dentist, but you get nice teeth afterwards.
Now, you mentioned there's going to be some avenues there in terms of being able to use other people to sign off on financial promotions to allow people to market cross-border into the UK. But we've equally seen some crypto exchanges, notably Bybit, who have decided to suspend their operations to the UK. Do you think that's something that we're going to see more of, or do you think people are going to be able to sort this out through the sort of routes that you were mentioning just then?
So what you've got at the moment, you've got fear, panic, and hoddle. The fear of the people who aren't yet built for it, they are having to either switch off entirely. We had the newspaper which announced we're never going to have any newspaper articles ever again targeting to the UK ever. That's fear. What you get is an overreaction because you don't understand it and you run away from it. You get the greed. The greed is the infrastructure play. I love greed. Greed gets things happen, okay? Guy Gensler, I'm president of the Guy Gensler Appreciation Society because that has created so much fear in the US. The money's coming across, the infrastructure is being built. It's fantastic to see. The hoddle is where I'm at with quite a lot of the token launches at the moment. What we have at the moment is we've got nice ways into Europe, and I can bang on my magic trick in German if you want a separate time, but we get gateways into Europe, and we're going to use UK as a separate thing. They are hodling while the UK regime calms down effectively. And what you've got at the moment is you need to not overreact, because it's easy to overreact, if you see what I mean. And then you just need to work out the best way forwards. And at the end, this is a purely commercial decision. There is a cost to compliance, and is the market worth the cost? That is the only thing that matters for a business, and this is a business call at the end of the day.
So, Roshi, we can build on that a little bit. You know, we've clearly talked about the idea of going cross-border and utilising somebody else to approve these financial promotions. But surely one option is just to go through a regulatory process here in the UK. You know, why would you not do that, or why would you do that?
Well, Jamie's right. So you're building the infrastructure, but getting FCA authorised or registered is a long process, right? So it's supposed to be a 3-month process, but you're looking at more than 9 to 12 months to go through that application. So that's quite painful in the short term and the long term. So you're seeing, what I'm seeing from my clients is we're actually just shutting off to the UK until this gets sorted out, which isn't helpful for the community. It's not helpful for, in my view, not helpful for the UK crypto sector.
Interesting. And obviously, Katie, Coinbase is exactly the sort of firm, you know, we're talking here around, you've got this issue to deal with. You know, how is this influencing or impacting your strategy and direction?
Yeah, I think I speak for the whole industry when I say that FinProm has been an extremely challenging experience. And you mentioned Bybit as just one example of a firm that has announced that they're having to pause their UK operations. But there are others too. I think PayPal and Luno also. And I think there will be more to come. And I think it's a very unfortunate situation where you have firms pausing in the UK in a country where the government has a stated ambition to become a kind of a crypto hub. So there's obviously a gap between the kind of the narrative in terms of the ambition and what's happening in terms of the regulation. I think from Coinbase's perspective, we're obviously working very hard to ensure that we're compliant. We will be ready by the go-live date, which is actually the 8th, which I think is Sunday. But that's not to say we haven't faced very significant challenges. And the challenge is really that the FCA interpretation of financial promotion is extremely broad. So, for example, every single thing on a website is a financial promotion. So that's an incredibly significant uplift. If you list an asset, that is a financial promotion. There are frictions that apply, so a 24-hour cooling off period, for example. That doesn't just apply if you are subject to a promotion or a direct offer. That applies for all onboarding. So I think our concern is that FinProm is actually much broader than a financial promotions regime. It does much more than what it says on the tin. And in terms of enforcement, it goes much broader than what's written in the rules. And then just specifically on the 24-hour cooling off period, that's... I think that puts the UK at a competitive disadvantage compared to other jurisdictions. I think we all recognise that supervisors have to have consumer protection top of mind, but with a 24 cooling off period, the UK is going further than every other jurisdiction in the world. And for a regulator that has a competitiveness objective, a competition mandate, I think perhaps the time is right for us to ask the question, is the FinProm regime compatible with that mandate?
I think that's a really interesting point. And I mean, you touched there also on enforcement, and I know a common theme for certain panelists over the last day and this morning has been, crypto's so big, there's so many tokens. how are you actually going to go about enforcing this? And I know, James, we had a brief chat about this yesterday over a beer, and thankfully it was at the earlier end of those beers rather than the later end. But you were talking about how there could be an impact for service providers to crypto businesses from a proceeds of crime and an anti-money laundering point. Do you want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what's been interesting is for those of us who need to get a life, on LinkedIn, the FCA have been putting out various statements. And one of the statements we've seen which blew my mind is the statement saying the entire crypto industry is not listening to this. Bear in mind, if you support one of these people, and it is a financial promotion in contravention of the rules, you are handling the proceeds of crime. Now that to me is more important than the fact it is actually a criminal offence, is the fact now, because of that, the FCA can wipe out the service providers. And bear in mind, you can sit in Panama, sitting nicely, I don't care, but if all your infrastructure to access the UK, the on-ramps, the off-ramps, the bank, the accountants, all of those have just been threatened with the fact if they do it and you're not in compliance, then they could be handling the process of crime, and their risk tolerance, bluntly, is going to be a lot lower than the guy in Panama. So it's effectively the FCA now beginning to show its hand as to how it is going to go about dealing with this problem, effectively. And that's why I think it's such a great thing to see, because that is what they're actually now putting what's going to happen next. So it's not going to be the token itself, it's going to be infrastructure. But bluntly, if you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have a token.
In my view, it's going to be a bit of a car crash, right? What you've outlined there is just a catastrophe for the industry. I don't know how you solve for that. And I don't know how the FCA are going to apply their rules globally, because they have global application. They're incredibly complex and comprehensive. It's just, and from the conversations I've had here, a lot of people in crypto aren't even aware that the rules are coming into force on the 8th of October. So it doesn't bode well, is my view. Car crash.
So if we do this panel in 2 weeks' time, we're probably all going to jail over here, because we've just mentioned an exchange, and therefore I'm just getting jail so ready, you get 3 meals a day. We do need the infrastructure in place. That is the big thing. That is what I'm obsessed with, if you see what I mean. If we get that, we have a way forward. We have a regulator going too fast, and I asked them why we're going so fast, and the reality is we've got a government which wants the rules in place, and it doesn't know how long it's going to be in power. So there's a mad rush at the moment to get these rules in, because we don't know what's going to happen next. We're moving too fast as a country. Now, my favorite way to describe any jurisdiction is which the least shit jurisdiction would you like to go into this week? And on that basis, the interesting point here is UK is moving so much faster than all the other regulators. And what's going to be interesting from my end is we've yet to have the horror show of MICA really get going in our lives, if you see what I mean. And this is 27 countries playing this game rather than one country playing this game. So what's going to be really interesting is, yes, I'm not saying there aren't problems. Yes, I'm not saying there aren't issues with it. But the question in my mind, and the thing which is making me more optimistic, is when you look at everything else which is going on in the world, there's regulation coming all over the shop. And what you're going to see is a huge move away from this concept of we just, that we do anything, school in the past, towards a more country-by-country approach. And that's what I'm having Web3. There was a case way back when where a US court took jurisdiction over a pornography company because an electron passed through US airspace. They had spent ages structuring themselves like the US, but because one electron went through one copper wire through one US state, the US took total jurisdiction and they went forwards. This is how they do it. This is why when you go, I'm going to be DeFi, you're complying with 150 countries' laws at the same time, including Uzbekistan, North Korea, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan. That's what you're really going at here. That ethos is the one under attack. And the question then, and it's a serious question, is that the right thing? Because you're trading off to an older school world where you're under one regulator's responsibility for you, and because of that, you sacrifice a lot of the DeFi element here, and that is why a lot of people are going to hate this.
I mean, financial promotions is something we focused on a decent bit here, and I think it's the thing that is most obvious, or perhaps maybe not for a lot of crypto firms, and should be and will be very soon, but it isn't the only thing we're seeing from a UK regulatory change perspective. I mean, one of the things that has happened, I think literally in the last month or so, was the introduction of the travel rule into UK regulation. I think it was the 1st of September that's been pulled into force. Sophie, how are firms like Zodia and your peers actually managing this? And do they have what they need to be able to comply with this? Or do you think there's additional support needed from government or from the regulator?
Yeah, so travel, as you said, it came into play beginning of September. And I guess to James's point, it seems like the UK's moved quite quickly with this to implement this. There's many other countries that haven't implemented just yet, including, I mean, the EU yet. It's still looking to be implemented towards the end of next year. So they've done it relatively fast. From what I'm seeing with various other firms, peer firms, there's a few different ways that firms are looking to comply with the travel rule. So there's various travel rule solutions out there. You've probably heard many names. They're sort of one-stop shop solution to enable you to comply. There's a number of protocols that are available as well. You may have heard of Trust and OpenVASP, ways to submit the information along with messages. Many firms are developing their own manual solutions, their own sort of manual approaches, and some are a mixture of all of those as well. So various different ways to comply. Zodia, since inception, we've been adopting the requirements of the travel rule for a long time. So we've got our own sort of manual solution. We've got a number of protocols out there. So it wasn't, thankfully, like brand new to us, and it's been something we've been doing for a while. But I have seen a number of challenges that firms are facing, and of course, Zodia, we see it as well. So if a few different things come to mind. So first one, you may have heard of the sunrise issue. So that's ultimately where countries like the UK have rolled it out, but then you have other countries that haven't, and you've got countries that have, but they've rolled it out in a different way. So there's deviating requirements. I think that can cause quite a few challenges, for example, for UK firms when dealing with counterparts in those countries who don't have the requirement yet. They have a different requirement. They may be sending not the full set of information. They may not be used to sending information. And ultimately, when you're executing transactions and trying to sort of deal with those counterparties and provide them services, you may not be getting all of that required information. And of course, you can't execute anything or accept any transactions until you've complied with it. So naturally, that could cause transactions to be halted, which of course is not great from a business sense. Operational burden, to go and look through and sort of check all the transactions. And I guess further hampered by the fact, unlike in TradFi, we don't have a swift, automated network system. So there are instances when transactions are having to be halted, which is just obviously, of course, not ideal for business. And your clients don't want the transaction sat there and when it's a highly volatile market. I think just a couple of other things come to mind is because, we've implemented it relatively quickly, the tools, there's good tools out there, but there's still much more development and innovation that needs to happen with those tools. So the tools, may not be able to be fully integrated with other protocols yet. People are having to use multiple different providers to meet their needs. And then finally, I think ultimately, we've had a bit of guidance from the regulator. The Joint Money Laundering Steering Group guidance, which is anti-money laundering focused guidance, has provided something. But again, it's been quite high level, and I think it's put the onus back on the institutions to take the decisions themselves. And I think with all of these challenges, over time, absolutely, the sort of more engagement and support that it would be really helpful to get from the regulator and a bit more clarity, such that rules like this can really work, because it's absolutely essential to be obtaining this information, but we just need to make sure it's not inhibiting and there's the free flow of transactions. So yeah, a few things that everyone's sort of coming up against.
And just building on that, because I can only spare some things. We've actually written the travel rule for a couple of countries. So we're actually writing several crypto frameworks for countries at the moment. And when we talk to the regulator, they don't really understand what it is they're required to do. They've got a travel rule that they as a regulator have been told to draft. They will draft it. A lot of them will copy and paste it across, and a couple of them think, oh, what should we do with this? They then get people who have companies specializing in the travel rule. Those companies will spin a yarn saying this is what we need to do. This is we're the only guys who can do it. We're the only guys who are compliant. You've got a regulator who's we're literally just copying and pasting travel rule across. That's what we're trying to do effectively. And then the company comes and says they can do it, and then they go to the likes of Coinbase and they say, we've got to use us. And suddenly, none of them are interoperable either. So effectively, it's by the lot. And therefore, what you get is this positioning thing to maximize cash, which, if you don't mind me going a slight hobby horse, one of the fundamental issues we are seeing at the moment is a reluctance by regulators to get behind certain solutions. and that is historic. That's just because regulators will say they don't control the market. But if we want, on a global scale, to be serious about this as an industry, there has to be consensus as to what good looks like. And at the moment, the regulators themselves, because these are just human beings, they don't want to get caught out of being the inferior regulator for not having stopped a bad thing by putting a low bar. So they throw it back on the industry and go, not our fault, your fault, we can't be shouted at, if you see what I mean. And therefore you've got fear. And that's why I can only feel sorry, because it means that you literally just go for literally the we buy any car school of, you just buy the whole lot and hope for the best. And it's not a way to run the business.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, I think that's, I guess we've implemented it very quickly, and it is pretty much sort of the requirements for TradFi into crypto. And I guess where we're sort of now needing a bit more support is how do we interpret that for the crypto sector and remain compliant, because at the moment we're obviously all trying to do the best we can, and to your point, there's all these tools out there, so we have to utilize them, but it's just that a bit more support and guidance needed such that it's not inhibiting.
I mean, it's interesting you mention the requirement for support there, because I think it's a nice segue into this additional theme that's already cropped up a little bit between a few of the panelists here around, you know, the UK, or at least the UK government appears to have this ambition to turn the UK into, you know, a crypto hub or a Web3 centre of excellence, and there's been comments from Rishi on this, but then, you know, we're talking about this through this backdrop of the regulatory change we've seen here and the lack of support. So I guess the question I'm trying to ask or build into is, do you think the UK is achieving its aim of becoming a Web3 centre of excellence and a crypto hub? And maybe you want to kick us off, Katie?
Yeah, sure. So I think on the positive side, the government has sent a very clear signal to the market that it's open for business for crypto asset firms, that it wants to become a centre of excellence for Web3. And I don't think you should underestimate the political message. It gives firms like Coinbase the confidence to invest and grow across the UK. I think also it's very positive that the UK is on the path to providing regulatory clarity for a broader comprehensive regulatory framework for crypto. We've seen a consultation earlier this year, and it's taking the approach of same risk, same regulatory outcome. So we'll start with the traditional financial services rules and then adapt them to accommodate some of the specificities of crypto markets, which I think is a very positive approach. In terms of what I think the UK should be doing more of, what it should be doing better, there are many jurisdictions that are moving much more quickly than the UK in terms of providing that regulatory clarity. We want the UK to keep pace with that. That said, I do think there is an opportunity for the UK, the second mover advantage, as the government often calls it. And I think so, for example, looking at MiCA, what are the best bits of MiCA? What should the UK take? Which bits should it discard? And I think there were already examples in the UK's consultation where it was learning the lessons of MiCA. So I think that second mover advantage is very, very positive. The other area where I think the UK could do more is a lot of the focus in the UK is all the thinking that's being done in crypto is being done in the Treasury. So very financial services focused, because the big focus is on regulation. But actually, a lot of the benefits of crypto are kind of applicable across the economy. And I'd love to see the UK take a kind of cross-government strategy to what benefits they can yield from the kind of crypto more generally. And I think the new Department for Science, Innovation and Technology would be really well placed to do that. And then just finally, I think there's one issue that we're all very focused on, which is the issue of debanking. There are two issues here. The one issue being the challenge for firms to get access to banking services. I think there's been a lot of political focus on politically exposed people in the UK, but it's much broader than that, and there are many sectors that find it very difficult to get bank accounts, and crypto is obviously one of them. The second issue in relation to banking is around transaction limits, and there are a number of banks that have put blanket limits on transfers from banks to crypto asset exchanges. If you speak to the FCA, they say that they expect the banks to take a risk-based and proportionate case-by-case approach. That's not what's happening. These are blanket approaches across the industry. And I think we can all say that we all recognize that there are elevated levels of fraud in the sector, and we all want to do something about that. So my ask would be, one, can we have more data from the banks on fraud levels on a firm-specific level so that firms know what they're working towards, so that there can be a case-by-case basis? Can we have more data in terms of fraud levels in the regulated exchanges versus unregulated exchanges? And also, can we have a forum where we bring together the banks, the crypto asset exchanges, but also the social media platforms, the telcos, because there are many players that contribute to fraud in the sector. And if the government were to play a role in terms of bringing all those players together, I think we could find a path forward in terms of addressing those transaction limits. So I would say the UK is making a very good start, but I think really important that the banking sector doesn't choke off the industry, because then all the good work that the government is doing is very much undermined.
I think that banking piece is really interesting when you add in the point James was making before around, all of a sudden any of the banks or fintech providers that were happy to bank some crypto businesses now maybe have this additional compliance obligation to ensure that the people that they're providing banking services to have complied with the financial promotions regime or risk banking proceeds of crime. And that's presumably going to narrow the number of banking institutions or fintechs who are happy to work with the space. But what are your thoughts, James?
So I have been in pictures where they go, James, we don't care about you as a lawyer. Do you know a good bank? If you use a good bank, we'll use you as a lawyer. So that, I think, shows the ranking and the importance of the banks in it, bluntly. We are seeing, to be honest, we are seeing this as a major issue. We've actually been writing ourselves to certain regulators try and move it forwards a bit, if you see what I mean. But this is not a new issue. Even in the original iteration of the first FCA sandbox, people were complaining about the lack of decent banking support in the room. So I do think it's one of the biggest issues out there. As regards the UK being a crypto hub, that I always find quite an entertaining question, because we get regulators turn up, right, and they go, write us a regulatory regime. And we go, fantastic, what does that mean? What do you want? What do you want to do? And what you're walking into now is all these regulators are talking to each other. So when you speak to one regulator, so they will speak about another regulator, and then they're all watching each other, and they want to copy each other. And we're going to move to a world where things are 80% the same, 10% specialist, and 10% clueless, because they don't really understand bits of it. It's the 10% difference which is going to be the really interesting part. So if Europe, for example, just pick one, the European CEL is a set handbook across the whole of Europe, same rules. Total lack of flexibility, but same rules. That is their CEL. If you take countries like Mauritius, their CEL is stability for an African country. That is partly their CEL. The big unanswered question in the UK is, what do we actually want our CEL to be? If you talk to the Law Commission, it's DAOs. So we've been talking about setting up DAOs, making DAOs work and all the rest of it. But if you then cross-apply that to the FCA framework, making arrangements with you to transaction requires FCA registration, and you can't register an entity which you're claiming doesn't exist, if you see what I mean. So one of the big things at the moment is when we say crypto hub, I don't want to hear crypto hub. I want to hear which sector within the crypto asset industry do we want to appeal to? Do we want exchanges, or do we want custodians, or do we want funds, or do we want token launchers? All of them are viable, if you see what I mean, and all of them are certain core needs. So your point on the banking, all of them need that. That's just the blanket you've got to have, effectively. In Asia, the regulator literally brought the banks into a room and said there would be fines if the Asian banks did not support the crypto community. That is why you suddenly got a whole lot of Asian banking rocking up. The only thing I would say, just bear in mind, you don't actually have to have a UK-based bank to have banking as a crypto firm. It's a common misconception. You just have to find a bank, and that's why you're going to see loss of business from UK banks to the outside market, while people find workarounds and other solutions, and also EMIs as well coming in to fill the gap. So there's money to be made in this, and there's ways forward in this. It's just, at the end of the day, it's a shame to watch it.
I think it's not just a UK issue, that banking piece. I mean, I'm based out in Dubai, and they've been quite progressive in terms of creating a crypto-specific regulator, but we still have the same issue. None of the banks want to touch it. I don't think that's a UK-specific issue. But Roshi, what's your thoughts in terms of the UK and the progress it's making in being a Web3 hub?
I think there's a massive disconnect between the government's ambition, stated ambition, to become a global crypto hub, and that's their words, with the approach the FCA has taken to the financial promotions regime. I mean, it's not very welcoming sending out letters to the industry saying that you're all going to go to prison for breaching the rules. It just doesn't align with what is a hospitable environment, right? If you look at other jurisdictions like Dubai, which are truly much more friendly and welcoming to crypto business, I think it's something out of step here with what the UK is supposed to be trying to do and actually what we're seeing on the ground. So no, I don't think it is fulfilling that ambition at all. Actually, the last I heard from Rishi was that he wants the UK to be a global artificial intelligence hub. So I guess they just do whatever's fashionable at the time.
What are your thoughts, Sophie?
Yeah, I think we've made a start, but I feel like it's just too early to tell at the moment. I think absolute regulatory clarity is needed because all firms, we're sort of in a bit of a grey area at the moment, waiting to see, you know, how is certain digital assets going to be categorised, how is stablecoins going to be categorised, you know, what additional licenses may we need? Do we go down that road now or wait? You know, it's quite challenging in that regard, and also just right-sized regulation as well that's fit for the crypto sector so it doesn't stifle it. I do think regulation is absolutely essential to the survival of the crypto sector, and also, you know, to bring integrity to it, to also attract TradFi as well, which I think then will further enable crypto to boom and innovate. But until that time, yeah, I guess we're just sort of all waiting. So hopefully, I would love to think that the UK would be a global crypto hub, but I just think there's more waiting to do to see if it will get to that stage.
I think it's interesting, Matt, that there's probably consensus between us on stage here in terms of, you know, maybe it's not quite there yet, but the fact that we're getting regulation is a positive thing. But not everyone thinks like that. You know, I mean, listening to some people speak on some of the panels these last few days, you know, they're still very, I guess, crypto OG and the sort of movement that grew out of this idea of, you know, we're anti-authority and we therefore don't need to comply with regulation. It's going to be really interesting to see globally how those two different sides of the fence sort of battle out and where we end up.
Can I just pick on that? So whether regulation is a good thing really depends on who you are, right? Because if you're a Coinbase, more regulations, that's great because you're the incumbent. And regulations help the incumbent. But regulations don't help smaller projects or startups, right? But want to operate in this space, but want to innovate. It's the complete opposite of a Coinbase. And we don't have the legal budgets of tens of millions to pay the lawyers to make sure everything's all right. So regulation up to a point, but if you go too far, then it is a drain on innovation, is my view.
There is one point I'd like to just clarify. What regulation is. Because people talk about regulation, like if we're unregulated, if we know what the fuck we like, we're above the law. We have actually had people come like, I can like sell random derivatives to 2-year-old children because I'm in DeFi and therefore I'm outside of regulation. That is not actually what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here, in regulation, we are talking about a group, a body, what we call the regulator, taking responsibility for the sector. So it's not that there's different laws in the sense of fraud is still fraud, lying is still lying. The question then becomes, this is where the rub comes, the nature of the regulator versus the nature of the industry. What you have a default response, which is financial services type regulators being applied to a Web3 type industry, because financial services traditionally has been the industry that has always been regulated. And where the rub comes then is getting the mindset to match up effectively between the two and getting the communication channels going to the two. And what's blown my mind is when you look at the financial promotion consultation papers, you hear all this talk about it. Only 2 firms have actually been involved in it. They're actually listed at the back. The FCA lists who's been involved. The FCA is being ignored. There are people at the FCA who I can drop an email to and I can introduce a client to have a chat about future regulation in the UK. They're quiet. So when we talk about this is not purely a, where the hell's the FCA? The FCA are there. The FCA will talk to people. You may not like what they have to say, but they're there and they're talking to people. So if you're going to whinge about this, bear in mind, if you never spoke to them, what right do you have to then slag them off?
I can feel the passion there behind your words, James. Now, we've dominated most of this panel with just under 10 minutes to go on the UK side of things, which I think was the right thing to do. We're here in London. We've got UK experts here on the panel, but obviously it is not just the UK that is impacted by crypto regulation. In fact, our neighbours over in the European Union are introducing their own regulatory regime in the form of MiCA or MiCA, depending, I guess, if you're from the UK or France or Germany. But Katie, what's your thoughts on MiCA? Do you think that is a positive step for Europe? Is it going to make it easier for the crypto industry, or is it likely to sort of push exchanges offshore and look for alternative routes?
Yeah, we're actually very, very positive about MiCA. It's the most comprehensive regulatory framework in the world. We think it's going to raise standards across the industry and create a legitimate and trusted industry of kind of crypto asset service providers. You asked me whether it's going to push exchanges offshore. we hope that it will incentivize firms to come onshore. And I think one of the key part of that is that the ESAs, ESMA and the EBA are going to be looking at more closely reverse solicitation. We think that's incredibly important because member states currently take very different approaches to reverse solicitation. We think there's potentially abuse in the market even now. And we actually think that they shouldn't wait for MiCA to come into effect before they enhance these standards for reverse solicitation. We think they should bring them in sooner. And in terms of like kind of the geographical considerations, I think there's be a less consideration between kind of offshore firms versus those that onshore within the EU. I think there's more of a debate in terms of level playing field within the EU. And that's because even though MiCA provides a single rule book, supervision still remains at national level, which means that there's still a risk of supervisory divergence. And I think what's really important for us is to make sure that regardless of where you choose to establish your MiCA hub, your MiCA entity, that there's a level playing field. And that goes that's the subject of when MiCA licenses are awarded, but also the ongoing supervision. So not just an issue in terms of onshore and offshore platforms, it's going to be about a level playing field across the EU. But overall, we'd say that the requirements in MiCA are very, very reasonable, and we're very, very positive about what we've seen come out of the EU.
I just want about that and say it's absolutely hilarious when you get the big conferences where all the good Europeans sit around the table and go, we're good Europeans. And because I'm not European, I then get bombarded with emails which is, ignore all that lot, we're the best country in Europe to send everyone to then access the rest of the world. Europe is going to be fascinating because you're going to have a couple number of winners and a couple of losers here, and we're going to be playing ping pong between them to get the best answer for our clients. But it's been quite fun to watch. We all pretend to be one thing and are actually completely different. The one other thing I just want to just mention, I think just also building is, bear in mind, there aren't that many people living in the BVI. So if you go full offshore and you don't touch the UK and you don't touch Europe and you don't touch the US, your client base is not the most awesomely large one, which at the end of this. So, you know, let's talk about, do we want to attract them in? Sod that. Are we going to force them in? Because effectively, if you want access to our people, you have to play by our rules. That's just the view the regulators are taking. They don't give a monkey if you want to go offshore. If you want to be offshore and disappear a slow death, fine. This is about being allowed to play in the game, effectively. If you won't play in the game, they don't want you.
I think that's a really interesting point because the last 3 to 5 years, I think for a lot of crypto businesses, but both centralized and more decentralized DAO governed type businesses has been, you know, we'll go offshore, we can service all these different jurisdictions cross border, and it really sounds like that is, you know, sort of coming to an end, and maybe we're going to get this great re-onshoring where firms are now going to have to move from the Cayman Islands, from the British Virgin Islands, from Switzerland, and they're going to have to, you know, set up and get licensed and authorized in the jurisdictions where their customers actually are, and there's nothing they can do about that. That's the direction we're going. Just quickly, before we sort of go into a wrap-up, I just want to touch on this idea of, you know, no matter what regulatory regime we're talking about, whether it's here in the UK, whether it's MiCA in Europe, whether it's the VARA regime over in Dubai, we've sort of all got this common theme that a big part of that regulatory regime relates to financial crime prevention and financial crime compliance. So I'm keen to sort of understand from you, Sophie, you know, what are sort of the key challenges you're seeing from a financial crime compliance perspective at the moment for virtual asset businesses?
Yeah, so as a crypto asset service provider, the money laundering regulations and as such the sanctions requirements were the first pieces of legislation we had to comply with. And I guess that's a core I would say, like for most of my day-to-day work, that's a core focus of mine. 80% of my day, I would say, would be focused on financial crime. I mean, a few key challenges that I see, I guess one of the real positives around crypto and the blockchain is the transparency that it provides you. You can see those end-to-end transactions, and when you're doing financial crime investigations, you get much more information on the blockchain than you would do otherwise in fiat. So it actually enables you to make much more informed decisions. However, I guess one of the challenges with that is that it's quite a lot of information to take in. It can be a bit of a data overload, so it can be a bit more challenging when sort of trying to take those decisions. And of course, we were talking a bit before this around, Russia and sanctions, and I guess just as an example there, one thing these blockchain analytics tools do is, really provide you so much really good data, and one of those data points is around direct or indirect sanctions exposure. But if you're then looking at a wallet address of your client, you may then see there's an indirect sanctions exposure from a few years ago, it might be 0.5% indirect sanctions exposure, but of course, sanctions is extremely serious. So trying to work out how to deal with that and how to be able to justify and work out if that's material to you and your client is, can be quite a challenge. I think another key challenge is around, there's constant innovation in the crypto sector. Almost daily we see, innovation, but at the same time, criminals are innovating as well. And, the ways that they seek to scam people, they seek to defraud, it's quite challenging for someone like myself and people in our team to try and keep up to speed with that and actually ensure we've got the controls to spot that. Should it happen, and new types of scams that you would never see before all of a sudden happen, and you need to be able to have controls in place to be able to identify those. And we touched on regulatory guidance as well earlier, sort of not being quite there yet, but yeah, few challenges, but we get through them.
Thanks, Sophie. Sorry, James, we've got 1 minute, so I'm just going to interrupt you. Literally in less than 20, 30 seconds each, can you each give us what you think your main trend in the sort of crypto regulatory space is going to be over the next 12, 18 months? Would you like to kick us off, Katie?
Yeah, I'm hoping stablecoins will be the main trend to deliver faster, cheaper payments. I think there was a very interesting Brevin Howard report that came out recently, which said that stablecoins settled $11 trillion on-chain last year. Now, that completely dwarfs PayPal at 1.4 trillion, almost surpasses Visa at 11.6 trillion. And what I say is that if that's now, just imagine the potential. So looking forward in terms of regulation, what do I want to see? I want to see a GBP stablecoin to put the UK on the map, and I want to see a stablecoin regulatory framework that encourages a flourishing stablecoin environment in the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. James, your key trend 2024?
So I'm a lawyer. You didn't become a lawyer by being innovative. Infrastructure. One word, infrastructure. Infrastructure will be built. It will move things forward. That is the only thing that matters. You can't get the rest of it and then the infrastructure is there. That's what we need to create.
Thanks, James. Roshi?
More regulation, jurisdiction by jurisdiction. It'll become increasingly complicated. You're going to have a kaleidoscope of laws and regulations to comply with, so make sure you're well advised.
Sophie?
I think for me, so HMT regulations, that regulatory clarity there in the UK, MiCA is going to be keeping me very busy, and tokenisation as well, that keeps coming up more and more, and how that's to be treated.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your insights. Can we please give them a round of applause?